Hey guys, welcome back. Today on The Untidy Artist, we're making a St. Patrick's Day fairy doll. This was actually a suggestion from several of my subscribers, so thank you for the awesome suggestion. She was a lot of fun to make and actually so fun that I made several different versions of this little Irish fairy. So let's grab some supplies and get started. Now the first thing you'll need is actually a fairy doll body. If you're new to my fairy doll tutorials, this will obviously look new to you. If you've made my fairies before, this part will be easy, but what you'll need is a 3/4 of an inch wooden bead with 1/8 inch hole, a piece of floral wire, and some embroidery floss for the skin and the hair. Now to learn how to make this little doll, please refer to my basic fairy doll tutorial. In this, I go through very basic step-by-step instructions on how to take the bead and the embroidery floss and the wire and turn it into this cute little fairy doll that we're now going to turn into a St. Patrick's fairy doll. You'll find a link for my basic fairy doll tutorial in the notes below, or you can click on the link up above and it will take you to that tutorial for step-by-step instructions on how to put your doll together. Then you're going to need some embroidery floss for her clothes, and then we're going to be putting shoes on our little fairy, so you'll need black for that, and of course green for her clothes. Then you'll need some flowers for her dress. I looked high and low for little shamrocks and wasn't able to find any big enough for her skirt, but I did find these really pretty green carnations, and they were the perfect St. Patrick's Day green. And then I was able to find some small shamrocks that we'll be using to kind of decorate her skirt, and they were pretty and sparkly. Then you'll need some glitter. I'll be using the gold glitter actually. I didn't end up using the green, but just some fun glitter to make her skirt sparkly. And then I have some gold rickrack, and we'll be using this to decorate our fairy doll. You'll need a pair of scissors, and then of course my glue gun set on low, which I didn't show, and let's get started. So the first step is to dress your fairy doll. We're going to create her clothes by taking a small dab of glue and wrapping the embroidery floss around a few times. Then you're going to wrap in a single layer up to right underneath her arms, and then in a V from the top of one shoulder to underneath the other arm, and you'll do that on both sides. And then you'll wrap back down and create a little pair of shorts for your doll. If you want more detailed instructions on how to do this part, you can also refer back to that basic fairy doll tutorial. It's important to remember that while you're wrapping, to do it in a single layer and to keep it as evenly as you possibly can. You can also give your doll different types of clothing. I'm just giving her kind of a V-neck top, but if you want to give her sleeves, you can, and when you reach the end, just put another little dab of glue, wrap it around a few times, and then trim off the excess. Now we're going to make our doll some shoes. So go ahead and grab your black embroidery floss. And I found after trying this several different ways that the easiest way was to put a small dab of glue at the very tip of her feet, and then take the embroidery floss over the glue so it's covering the bottom of her foot. Start wrapping it up slowly in an even layer, and you just want to do about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, not very big at all. And then trim off the excess piece there and wrap in an even layer back down. And then any little spots you missed in the beginning, just add a little bit more glue to cover up that little spot. So you can see I just have that little dab of glue that I'm adding. And just wrapping that black thread around a few more times. My daughter informed me when I was making the first Irish fairy doll that she needed to have black shoes. So this is for her. There you go, Sid. And then just wrap the thread around a few more times and cut off the excess. If you ever have glue showing on your doll at all through the embroidery floss, you can get your hairdryer, and the heat from the hairdryer will melt the glue so it's clear. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So small dab of glue at the very tip of her foot, take that embroidery floss over the glue so it covers the end of her foot, and then just wrap it back and forth a few times up, trim off the excess, make sure that they're even. I like to hold them up next to each other. And she has little black shoes. Now the next step is to grab the flowers that you're using for her skirt. So in this case, my 2 green carnations. And I thought it would be fun to layer the green and white with just the plain green to give it some texture and just different color. And so I'm going to pull both of these apart. And then I'm also going to grab my little shamrocks. And these were really small, but I thought they would be a really cute top layer on her skirt. Plus they are shamrocks, and it's a St. Patrick's Day fairy, so we need some good luck. And when you have them all pulled apart, the next step is to cut a small X in the very center of the flowers. So I layer my 2 shamrocks together, and I'm going to cut a very small X right in the center. You want to be careful when you're using small flowers for the skirt that you cut very small X's, because you don't want to cut through the flower. You want it to stay in a circle so it can go up around her waist. And then I decided to use 2 layers of the green and white and 2 layers of the green, and I layer those together until I have them arranged like I like. And line up the hole in the center, fold it in half, and then you're going to cut an X into the center, just like you did with the shamrocks. So cut down about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, open it up, and then you're going to cut it the opposite way. So we create that X in the center, and this will allow the petals to slide up around her waist. And this is what it looks like. And then you can see I'm just going to overlap the 2 little shamrocks over the top. At this point, I like to hold it up to my doll to see if I like the way that it looks. And if I do, then I start sliding the petals up around her waist, starting with the smallest or the top layers, and arranging them as I go. Once you have all of the flower petals arranged around her waist, you're going to grab the glue gun and add some small dabs of glue between each of the layers, pinching them together to hold the skirt in place. You'll do that on the front and then do that on the back. And I just add glue in different spots just so that the skirt will stay together. Ta-da, she has a skirt. Now we're going to take the gold rickrack and we're going to add a little sash or a belt for her. So take a small piece of the rickrack and cut it. And then take a small dab of glue and place the rickrack right over it and just wrap it around her waist. And then trim off the excess. I thought this added a fun pop of gold for our St. Patrick's Day fairy. The next step is to grab your gold glitter, or if you want to use green on this part, you can do that. And using the glue gun, I'm just going to put some dabs of glue along the very bottom of the top layer of her skirt. And then I'm going to sprinkle my glitter right on top of that. You could also use craft glue or any other type of glue you had, but because I had my glue gun handy, it just seemed easiest to use my glue gun. So I'm going to do that on the front, and then I'm going to do that on the back. And this just adds another fun pop of sparkly color for our dress. Then take your excess glitter and dump it back into your container. Now it's time to style our doll's hair. Now I always leave this to the end because I feel like it's the hardest part, but I'm going to put a little dab of glue at the very base at the top of her hair and slide the head up so that the hair stays in place. And then arrange it in the front so you like the way that it's parted and the way that it lays. And then the trick with the hair is to really work slowly and smooth the thread as you go. So I like how that looks in the front. Now I'm just going to smooth it by gently pulling it down with my fingers until I have it nice and smooth. And then what we're going to do is loop it up and around to make her hair fuller. So I'm looping it up and around, and I'm going to put some glue on the back of her head, and I'm going to attach the underneath part of the thread onto the back of her head. So trim off any little weird pieces you have, adding my glue, and looping it up and around, and then just holding that in place while it sets. And you can see it makes a loop. And then, once again, gently smoothing it down. And if I need to add a little bit of glue in the front to hold the hair down, I do. And I just keep really working the thread until I have it nice and smooth. And I'm just going to add another dab of glue on the side there so it lays flat. I really love this little Irish fairy's red hair, especially as it pops against the green. And then I'm going to take some of my gold rickrack and make her a little crown. So I just cut a small piece, wrap it around her head, and using a small dab of glue, just attach that rickrack together. And she's done. Ta-da! You have a St. Patrick's Day fairy. Thank you so much for watching. This was a really fun tutorial to do, and I hope you have fun making your own St. Patrick's Day fairy and hope you luck. You can see some other versions I have of this cute little fairy doll. Please check out some of my other fairy doll tutorials, including my Little Mermaid fairy here. And you'll find a lot of different tutorials on my website, untidyartist.com. Give this tutorial a big thumbs up if you liked it, and if you have any comments or questions, please post those below. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.